Hi, everybody. Give you a moment here to get connected to sound. Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rails 1324th New Social Environment. I'm Joshua, a Programs Associate here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Daniel Roesler and Jessica Holmes. And now I'll introduce today's guest and host. Daniel Roesler is a partner at Galeria Nara Roesler, one of Latin America's leading contemporary art galleries. His mother, Nara Roesler, began her career as an art dealer in Recife in 1976 and founded the gallery that bears her name in São Paulo in 1989. Daniel joined as partner in 2003 after completing his MBA at Columbia Business School. He oversees the curatorial, institutional, and communications programs, as well as the New York operations, or as he puts it, the artist side of the gallery. With spaces in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and New York, the gallery represents artists who trace a history of modern and contemporary Brazilian art. In 2026, Nara Roesler celebrates 50 years in the art world. Our host today, Jessica Holmes, a co-editor of the ArtSeen section for the Brooklyn Rail, has also contributed to its pages for over a decade. Her writing has also featured in Bomb, Hyperallergic, The New York Observer, Vanity Fair Spain, among many others, and has been included in over 24 exhibition catalogs and monographs. Previously, Jessica worked for the Calder Foundation for nearly 2 decades, including 6 years as its deputy director. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jessica.
Thank you, Josh, for that great introduction. Daniel, thanks for being here today on a very busy weekend. And thank you to everyone out there in the audience for joining us today. Um, I am looking forward to diving in. We've got so many amazing images to look at and a lot to talk about. So, Daniel, I thought maybe to start us off, there may be folks in the audience who are not entirely familiar with the Brazilian art scene. And I wonder if you could just give us a little foregrounding of the contemporary art world in Brazil today.
So, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, the team at Brooklyn Rail, for inviting me and to organizing all this. It's really a pleasure to be here. And thanks, Jessica, to for taking the time to do some research on us and starting this conversation. So, um, well. Brazilian art scene has been strong and active for a long time. Um, it's Brazil is a big country with a diverse culture and a strong history on the visual arts. So um, we have this São Paulo Biennial, for instance, that is the second longest running biennial in the world after Venice. Started in 51 and has has had this super important um, uh, it's been an in fact important factor in the development of Brazilian art because for such a long time, every 2 years there is this huge influx of ideas into the country, of artistic ideas. So especially in the beginning, when without the internet or whatever, it was really a way for the Brazilian art community to really soak in so much information coming from um, everywhere, and in start creating connections and developing our own ideas in relation to what was going on in the world, sometimes in agreement, sometimes in disagreement. But it has been a very rich dialogue. So in Sao Paulo, for sure, and in the other parts of the country, in a more isolated way, but uh, the artistic community has been always developing and in conversation with each other and with this kind of hub in São Paulo. So um, market wise, it's it's more recent. So an art market has only really developed, I would say, from the 80s on in Brazil, and has been, organizing itself since then. And it's a healthy market for Brazilian art. More and more galleries participating and having a presence outside of Brazil too, through the art fairs and through the supporting artists in biennials and institutional shows outside. So I guess that people might not realize, but being in New York, for instance, um, you see constant presence of Brazilian art. You see a lot of local galleries in New York representing Brazilian artists. You see curators working in the United States and in Europe and in other places that are putting Brazilian art in dialogue with international art, and so on. So uh, it's a it's it's a rich history, and um, what we've been trying to do is to you know take part of it, uh, take part in it, and help um, make these connections and dialogues happen not only in Brazil but outside of Brazil.
And your family has a long history going back almost 50 years in the art world. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the gallery's beginnings and your mother's work to found and establish such a what has now become such a big presence in the Brazilian art scene.
Sure, sure. Well, since I have any memory, uh, there has been, art around the family. So my mother tells these stories that also when she was growing up, she got involved with the arts at first because her grandfather um, was the dean of the visual art school of the university in Recife,
Hmm.
this town where we come from in the northeast of Brazil. Um, an old town, old city, with a lot of culture. Um, just by reference, maybe you saw or you heard about a movie, a Brazilian movie that is running for the Oscars, The Secret Agent,
Yes.
and it's all filmed in Recife. So that's where we come from. Um, and so she grew up around um, salons and conversations in her grandfather's house, uh, filled with artists from Recife, poets, writers, um, and visual artists. So it was kind of a natural way for her to grow up and to get involved with that, which she then ended up doing in the mid 70s when she was, I don't know, on her mid 20s, and organizing the first exhibition in 76 around drawings in Pernambuco. Um, she then moved on to establish a gallery that wasn't named Nara Roesler Gallery, it was Art Espaço in Recife. And by basically because of her involvement with a local artist called José Cláudio, um, who was close to her, and this is the artist who is painting in that first slide of
Oh,
the presentation. And he was an artist from Recife, and he was having a moment in Brazil. He had been invited to the São Paulo Biennial and was having exhibitions in São Paulo and in museums. And he looked for her. It's a Nara. I need someone to represent me. I don't have a gallery. we're friends. I trust you and whatever. And why don't you do that? And she started organizing little exhibitions at first in her house, in our house. Um, my father was an architect, so everything was kind of cultural in a way, and and selling his work in Recife, and then starting the gallery, and that's how kind of the origin story of the gallery that very quickly um, moved on to create bridges between Recife and the kind of the cultural center in São Paulo. But not only São Paulo, the many Brazils. I think that my mother always had this idea that she would try to connect all the different Brazils into one kind of central entity. And so she started bringing to Recife critics, curators, artists for the shows and for conversations, for just to have this cauldron of culture going on, and that's how the gallery started, and for over 10 years or so developed in Recife. Then. Um, for me, 76, when she did her first show, I was 4 or 5 years old. So for me, it's in a way kind of a similar story as hers. I grew up around these these people, uh, the artists, the collectors, and um, but I um, I resisted a lot to get into to join her in the gallery when I was growing up. And I don't know, different personality, and my own story was not as direct as hers. Uh, but then in the late 90s, uh, I started really working with her in the gallery in São Paulo and helping her out, helping to organize the gallery a little bit, helping to run it as a young, uh, college student.
Mhm. And so you really joined the gallery around the late 90s and
Yeah. I joined around the late 90s. As I said, like I was studying engineering, and so studying a very different path, and so I had this kind of organization mentality to help her out and consulting a little bit for her, I would say. And then I was doing my own things in parallel, entrepreneurial things, until at some point I sold a company that I was developing with my younger brother, and was back in the gallery doing, helping out when I felt like that the bug uh, of art was hitting on me, and oh, this is actually really interesting, and uh, and I still resisted a little bit the idea to continue there, because I guess that I also followed her battle, right? On the especially in the early years, we are five siblings, and she was my when she moved to São Paulo, separated from my father, and a few years later he passed away. But she was, taking care of a big family on her own with a gallery, and it was hard. So it's um, I mean I was trying to figure out what to do with my life too, and I thought that I better do something else. And but then when this bug hit, and I resisted, and I decided that I wanted to continue doing this entrepreneurial stuff, and I decided to do an MBA and went to New York and was studying in Columbia. Um, and then this idea of the gallery hit me even harder because I was in New York and I was visiting, the museums and visiting the galleries, and I was, going to school, and everything that someone was teaching, I was, connecting to a gallery.
Mhm.
uh, and so when I finished, my mother made me a very generous offer to why don't you come back to Brazil? Let's work together. And I said okay. So I did, and that was 2003, and we have been working together ever since. Um, so my background when I joined the gallery was not in the arts. My background in the arts was just osmosis, just uh, pulling in everything that was
Mhm.
around me. And then I came in with still this kind of alternative training that very quickly uh, became more and more transformed into intuition. So another thing that maybe passed by osmosis from Nara to to me, but was to, even if after having all these ideas of whatever structure and trusting more on the intuition and moving on, and that's the way to to be around art.
Well, I understand it can be a very formidable idea to join a family business, but it sounds like since you have been part of the gallery, that's been all forward momentum. And there's so many different, with the two additional branches and the many different programs that you're involved with. I thought maybe we could talk for just a minute about one of them that I found really interesting, the Roesler Hotel program, which some of our guests might not be familiar with.
Okay, so let me see how do I start. This is a program that uh, I started really early on when I joined the gallery. It was the moment when we started going to art fairs internationally. And before that, Brazil had been a very closed country. So it was very hard to travel abroad. And it was basically impossible to bring anything in for import reason. And it was opening up, and we had just started doing international fairs, and the first ones that I did, one of the early ones was Zona Maco in Mexico, in the early days of Zona Maco. And the fair was really difficult. Nothing really happened there in terms uh, of selling art. It was in a place where it was hard to get. There was a strike in the city, so the audience couldn't get to the building, and the galleries were left there talking to each other, and some great friendships started. And after the fair finished, I said, "Oh, why don't we start a kind of a social experiment to bring artists into Brazil from my new friends that I made in the art fair. So invite artists from these galleries to come to Brazil. They will spend a week putting together the show. It was a small space. It wasn't a big investment, and let's see what can happen when people come to Brazil. They meet our artists, they spend some time there, they have, they do this thing, that it's crazy, but it feels like, um, this very strange barrier that is people crossing the equator line from the north to the south. You barely, I mean, in the US, when you talk about the South, it's like Mexico, which is the north of the hemisphere, right? It's very rare that people really do cross the equator and go to the bottom half of the world. And so we started bringing slowly artists for small shows in the gallery, and with not a lot of plan, just hoping that to chart, what would happen in this free experiment of just doing that. And so that's how the Roesler Hotel started. As the idea of the name was to host ideas. Um, a lot of people were confused. So, oh, you're opening a hotel? No, there's nothing to do with that. It was this temporary space for social experiment to develop ideas, and we did it for a number of years until it got transformed into a slightly different project that instead of inviting artists to come, we started inviting curators to develop like a carte blanche program, a project. So that would include more than one artist. Um, and and then something really important happened and struck me as uh, as being something that we should do more, which was we invited a curator from Colombia, Jose Roca, who's a great person and had a very strong interest in the ideas of flora and nature, environment. And it's the first picture that we see on the top left side. So he did this show, putting together Colombian, Brazilian, and some American artists like Roxy Payne, Mark Dion. And it was a beautiful show, amazing, blah blah blah. But then a few months after we closed the show, I got a phone call from Jose saying, "Oh, Daniel, I'm coming. I'm boarding a flight to Brazil, and I'm going to the south of Brazil, but I'm stopping in São Paulo. Can we have a coffee together?" Sure. And we meet in São Paulo for a quick coffee, and he says, "Daniel, look, I wanted to make a point to come and to talk to you, because I wanted to let you know that I'm going to Porto Alegre in the south of Brazil to sign uh, a contract with the Porto Alegre Biennial, the Mercosul Biennial, they selected my project as the next uh, curatorship for the biennial. And I wanted to let you know that the project that I sent that was selected, it's basically the project that we did in the gallery. So it's an expanded version of the project that we did at the gallery. And for me, it was something like, wow. So, curators also need a space to experiment ideas. Sometimes, before they are given a museum space or a space to work on these ideas. And since then we had continued against all odds to do this program in the gallery in Brazil. So we had many curators that came to Brazil for the first time, like Patrick Charpenel, who now runs the Museu del Barrio in New York. Um, curators from Europe too, like Mathieu Poirier, and a number of curators from Latin America, from Argentina, from Chile, and always thinking about, okay, so let's let's try to give this opportunity to experiment ideas and bring new artists to the gallery. So this is the Roesler Hotel. It ran for around 30 editions,
Wow.
and then we at some point we decided to change it again
Mhm.
into a um, be less of a temporary space and be more of curatorial ideas that can um, connect our own artists with other artists and be more go deeper into the artists that we represent. So we stopped calling it Rosler Hotel, but the I think that the concept of the importance of curators uh, and the importance of allowing an opportunity for curators and working with different opening up new ideas has you know continued with the gallery, and still is a very important part of what we do.
I wanted to touch on it because it seemed like so emblematic of your ethos, which you kind of alluded to a few minutes ago. But when we were talking earlier this week, you mentioned the North-South bridge between Brazilian artists internationally and international artists in Brazil, which I thought was such a lovely idea. And another way you've developed that bridge is in your expansion to Rio and then to New York. Can you talk a little bit about how that trajectory unfolded?
Yes, it actually started a little before by doubling the space in São Paulo. So we had this, or since the start of the gallery in São Paulo, we still are in the same address, and for some time we had a neighboring gallery that was Thomas Kohn, a very important gallery in Brazil, the gallery that first showed Adriana Varejão and some other important artists in Brazil, and who was originally from Rio and opened this space in São Paulo and decided to open next doors to us because in a way to maybe try to do a little hub in São Paulo, that everything is spread around. It's very difficult to go from one gallery to the other. And for many years we were neighbors. And at some point he decided to retire. And so I said, "Oh, let's maybe we should keep the space. Um, so convenient next doors. We can connect both, and that would be great." And we did it, and it was a great experience. We did a number of the Roosevelt Hotels project in this new space, um, and from there we started thinking, okay, so we liked it. What should we do next?
Mhm.
Um, and Rio is a city that is. A lot of our artists are based in Rio.
Mhm.
They have their studios in Rio, and Rio has this long tradition of uh, connoisseurship in Brazil. It was the capital of Brazil for a long time, since the um, imperial times in Brazil, and it's a long history of art there, and art making. So we thought it would make a lot of sense to be closer to our artists and closer to some of our collectors there. And we uh, started this experiment. Okay, so let's try uh, a new expansion that is a little farther than next door, right? So it would be kind of a different kind of training, and it's a little house in Ipanema, which is a different exercise for the artist when they do a show with the gallery. They would have to think in a very different way to do the shows in Rio. At the same time, it's in Ipanema, which everybody knows around the world, the girl of Ipanema. And it's so we like the idea. We renovated the house and we opened with this show that we're seeing on the slide now by Marcos Chaves, um, who's an artist from Rio and who transformed the gallery that was just renovated into this gym. And it was a little before the Olympics, but his idea was that he was he likes to to deal with words and meanings, and he had this great line that in Rio and in Brazil, in Rio there are uh, two very important words: escola, which is school, and academia, which is academy, which normally translate into education, right? So the school and the academy. But in Rio, it's the samba school, and the academy is the gym. Is the right. So, we had outside of the gallery this neon of academy, uh, but inside it was it was a gym, and the and all the equipment was made by him with very kind of cement and kind of a bootstrap kind of gym, and we had this event for the opening. It was super nice.
The
Um,
memorable inauguration.
yeah, yeah, and there was a picture before that of the Nara and a lot of the artists from Rio
Yeah.
and myself. Uh, Coming in Rio, arriving in Rio, or whatever. And I like this picture because it's not that we only work with male artists, but in this picture it's me and all male artists, but Nara is there in the middle, leading the way. So I think it's a great picture.
Symbolic of her forward march. And then a few years later, you expanded again into New York.
Yeah, so just next year. So we were so excited with this idea that it was possible to, to run a different, a gallery on, more distant than we had at first. We were in São Paulo, then we had the neighbor, then Rio. That was a 40-minute flight. And then we started thinking about New York, and this is that picture is not years before,
Mhm.
probably during a fair that we were doing in New York, um, or an institutional show in the city. I don't remember exactly, but the fact is that we were walking around the city, and she saw, this leasing opportunity in Chelsea of a space, and was there having a look and calling the broker to see, just to speculate on the idea of opening a gallery in New York. Uh, we didn't move forward at the time. It was way too expensive for us. Didn't make any sense, but this idea never left her mind or ours. And years later, we decided that after the experiment in Rio, that okay, let's try New York. And nobody had ever tried that before in in Brazil. I mean, there had been collaborations, right? Lots of Brazilian galleries that had kind of partnerships in New York, and were showing the Brazilian artists with in these collaborations. Um, but never a Brazilian gallery had really opened a permanent space in New York. So we decided to do it. We decided that um, it's the traditional way is to find a partner in New York and then give the artist to this partner. And it seemed to work because uh, the galleries in New York had the connections and had the the audience in New York to to quickly, make an impact in the careers of these artists. Um, and we were not totally at ease with this idea because it felt in a way that what it means is that we cannot really uh, take care of our artists in New York or in whatever important international hub there is, and we need to have the gatekeeper and be really kind of in the hands of someone else who will select which of our artists is worthy of bringing to New York, or which of the how to do it and what's the price and whatever. And so we were not that much at ease with this, and we thought that maybe things could be done in a different way, and we decided to try it out. But we decided to do it on a slow pace.
Mhm.
So we opened our first space in the Flower District.
Mhm.
I think it was the time when Chelsea was, into that transformation, that all the old spaces were being torn down for new buildings, and the galleries were leaving Chelsea, and there was a question mark in the city: where is the next hub going to be? And it was all spread around. And there was, we heard that maybe the Flower District would be one of the spaces.
Mhm.
And we took a really small, it's not even this place. Um, it's before that, on top of a kind of a Chinese hardware store.
Mhm.
But at first it was going to be an office for us to be closer to the the clients that we had in New York, that we had built after many years of doing art fairs
Mhm.
and doing projects around the world. And so we rented this space, and the artist immediately said, "Oh, okay, now that we have a space in New York, let's do shows." And it was, just a space for a desk and a little rack with works. But we started doing shows there in a very experimental way. We have an image of a Le Parc show of a. It was like a dark room with this light works that we showed, and it was at the time that he was having a show at the Met Breuer. Um, so we said, oh, let's show him also here in the gallery, and we closed the windows of the space, and so that was basically the gallery. That was it. And we had this room with this light works. Um, and then uh, we did a few shows there, but we quickly realized that we better have some more space, because it's not easy to show here. And we found a space in the Upper East Side, also a third floor,
Mhm.
but it was already like a big improvement. And we started doing this kind of jewel box kind of shows, like this Tomiotaki show that we see on the screen now, that was curated by Paulo Miada, a wonderful curator from Brazil. He was running the Tomiotaki Institute for many years, and he had discovered in his research something that Tomi um, had never kind of, not that it was a secret,
Mhm.
but she wouldn't talk so much about it. But the way that she was doing her paintings in the 60s was based on this process that she would cut out pieces of paper first by just like ripping the paper apart and doing these collages uh, in these little notebooks, and then from the collage she would paint the painting as a very detailed uh, transference of a representation of that collage into canvas. So it was, you would normally look at the paintings and think about the paintings as like a moment of of chance or whatever, a gesture. But in reality, that moment was of ripping the paper and creating the collage. The painting itself was a very controlled exercise of texture and color to get to the exact uh, effect of the collage. And this process had never been shown. And
Wow.
Paulo organized with us a show first in São Paulo, then we did it in Rio, and then we brought it to New York in this space. We also did shows that I thought were very beautiful on Leon Ferrari, for instance, Argentinian artist that had a show at MoMA. Um, we had some group shows there. I think that the next slide. Um, oh, this is a show by Carlito Carvalhosa, which also had a show at MoMA. He was the first Brazilian artist to occupy the atrium of MoMA a few years before that. And he did that intervention in the space with the light was very nice. This was a curated show by Luis Perizoramas, who has been since then working with us and really helping us draw this path in New York. Not only in New York, he has also helped us a lot with organizing our publications, which is another side of what we do in the gallery, and many other things. We have wonderful conversations whenever possible. And this is so this was a show called the Archaeology of the Selfie, and it was all these works around the ideas of selfie, including this Tomiotaki, this gray painting that is from a series in the late 50s, early 60s, called the blind paintings, that she would blindfold herself and do these paintings by intuition. And so we thought it would be nice to have it in the selfie show. And right after that, COVID strikes, and we spent a few months. I had just, I think, when COVID hit New York, I was living in New York, and I had spent maybe the previous year looking for a space to move from the Upper East Side, and I had just signed the lease for this space in Chelsea,
Oh no.
uh, like 2 months before COVID, and I said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do now?" But the reality is that at the end of the day, we after a few months on the lockdown, we realized that things were, uh, in the not in New York, but in Brazil, because we had a long history in Brazil and we had a deep uh, group of collectors and supporters of the gallery, and they were still supporting the gallery during the pandemic. So it was an interesting effect that people left the city. They all went to bigger houses in the outside of São Paulo, and were locked there, and they were collecting. It was a super productive time for the gallery, even if we didn't have shows and we didn't have fairs. but we were organizing all these, trying to get the connection going between the artists and the curators and the collectors through Zoom conversations like this, and viewing rooms, and it was very, very busy. We were like transforming ourselves into a kind of a TV studio in a way. But uh, we said, okay, it's I think we'll be fine when the crisis is over. Uh, Art will continue, so let's do it. So we started building the new gallery in Chelsea. It was where we are now, and it was the first occupation of this new space on the street level, below a new building. And we had to build it, from scratch, like uh, AC ducts and lighting and the walls and everything. We invited an architect from Brazil, Miguel, who who is a friend,
Mhm.
and he designed the gallery for us. And in January 21st of 2021, on January 2021, we opened it with this show that we call Crosscuts, and it was a series of small shows trying to showcase different conversations in the gallery roster. We were excited to also to show bigger things that we couldn't fit into the elevator of the Upper East Side gallery or through the window. Uh, and so we started there, and it was still COVID, so we were hosting visitors through appointment, small groups at a time, and it was our training into Chelsea.
Daniel, one of the things that I love about walking into Nara Roesler when I'm in Chelsea is that I'm frequently introduced to new artists or artists that I'm unfamiliar with. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how the reception of your international roster of artists has been received in New York, and what some of the challenges and what some of the surprises have been for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's a huge challenge. We put ourselves in the situation of going head on in this really big challenge, which is uh, we are basically showing Brazilian artists from our roster in New York. Oftentimes artists that have had no exposure to the New York audience, and that we're showing them for the first time. Um, and oftentimes the artists from our roster that are more recognized internationally, they already had a partnership with other galleries in New York from before we opened. Um, so it really makes our program kind of a program of discovery. We are always bringing um, artists from the roster that hadn't been or had been very little shown in the city. And so it's a slow process. And it's this year, 2026, we are turning this adventure in New York is turning 10. So 10 years already, which is, a lot of grit and perseverance. And um, but having said that, what we feel is that this process is, bearing fruits, because the the artists that we have been showing in New York now, at first you would say their names and nobody uh, knew them. It was always a surprise, and now it's becoming part of the conversation. So it's really interesting to see this change happening. It's a slow change, but it is happening, and the institutions are paying attention. We have been having, um, the gallery in Chelsea is part of the path that people do, and so the curators and the directors of the big museums in the city, they come and they see the shows, and we have conversations. So we have been working on projects around the country, and some of these artists are slowly, making their ways into the collections and programs in the museum. So as is the case of, so we're seeing Abraham Palatnik in this image, and we did the show in 22, I think, and he's a pioneer of kinetic art, um, and the work that we see on the right side is this light box from the 50s, and which was a very revolutionary thing that he did. It was part of the works like these were part of the first São Paulo biennial in 51, and
Amazing.
and he was coming from a very different trajectory, doing like traditional painting. Went on to work um, on a project in a mental health institute in
Hmm.
Rio, dealing with the interns and using art to help them out. And he got so impressed and so shocked with the power of what these people were doing in art terms, with no training,
Mhm.
that he, for a couple of years was blocked and decided not to paint anymore. And then when he came back into art, was doing these light boxes that were paintings with no canvas and no paint, just moving light. That was really super revolutionary at the time. So he had been showing these works in the Venice Biennale in the 60s, in the São Paulo Biennial, and with Denise René in Paris, with Howard Wise in New York. And then his work for a long time went kind of unnoticed, and we started working with him in the 2000s, and you know getting attention to his works again. And now, I mean, when MoMA reopened the building, not when it reopened the building, but when it inaugurated when it reopened the building and had the big show of Latin American art of the Patti Cisneros collection. Uh, so there was one of these works, and it's now part of the show, together with another a later work that is a progression of wood. And now the new museum is reopening the building, and they're going to be showing one similar work of Abraham Palatnik. Um, Tomio Otaki has entered the collection of many different museums in the U.S., including MoMA. It's hanging in the modern right now, um, and San Francisco MoMA, and Dallas Museum, and the Metropolitan, and and so on. So um, younger. A younger generation like Carlito Carvalhosa also was included in the collection of the Guggenheim, and so it's very it gives us a lot of joy and pride to realize that this tough path that we decided to take is, it's not easy. It's not. Sometimes we wonder if, oh, is it really the right thing to do? Shouldn't we be just uh, taking some, maybe easier path, and letting other people, do the work? But at the end of the day, it's very. Uh, I think it's really, as I was saying, it makes us proud to be able to help the artists. That's kind of the mission that we set out to do in the beginning, and help out the artists. So the what can we do to make their voices heard and their works um, understood and enjoyed by an audience. And New York seems, it's a competitive place. It's big and it's great art everywhere. But we feel like it's also um, a right place for us to be, because Brazil and the United States have so much parallel histories that nobody knows.
Mhm.
But Brazil is this big country, as big as the United States in the South, with many of the same struggles that happened in the U.S. And many of the same interests on telling new stories around the development of art and the genealogy of different movements and the representation of different peoples, both, countries with a heavy immigration history. And Brazil has the largest uh, Japanese population outside of Japan. In São Paulo, for instance, the Black community is massive in Brazil. Yeah, big immigration populations from not only from Europe but from the Middle East and from uh, uh, other countries from Latin America. So there are many interesting parallels that I think that as people start to repeat, to do what you do, go to the gallery, see one show, see the other show, come back. Maybe if you have time, people don't have so much time, but if you have time to read a little bit and to discuss. Luis is a great person to have in New York. Uh, the conversations are wonderful, and whoever is interested in what we're showing, we can always, schedule moments of to talk. But that's it. So I'm hoping that this is the case, that these parallels are going to become more evident and more interesting to the public. And we are being, patient, and we feel like this adventure is slowly, bearing the fruits that we dreamt of. And as long as the artists are as patient as we are, and continue to be, with us and supporting what we do, I think we can continue doing it the way that we're doing.
Well, I just want to thank you for giving a platform to these artists in New York and being able to see them in dialogue with other artists from here is really just a unique and special experience when you walk into the gallery. And I know the bell is ringing, it's 2 o'clock, but before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, Daniel, if there's anything on the horizon through this year that you're particularly excited about or wanted to share with our viewers today.
Well, this year we are celebrating this 50 years of NADA. So this is what we are really, focusing on. We are putting together a program of exhibitions around this story, and we are learning through it, because we are realizing that our archives are, missing so many things. But we're trying to um, to tell the story of my mother as an art dealer for 50 years. Not easy to to be doing that for so long, and trying to research ideas on the next 50 years. What should we do? Where should we go? And how do we continue with her legacy? Um, and so we're excited to see how these discussions are going uh, to take shape. we have invited curators for each one of these exhibitions. And the first one is happening in March in São Paulo, in the São Paulo Gallery, curated by Moacir dos Anjos, who has done in the past a beautiful Roesler Hotel project in São Paulo, curated one of the São Paulo biennials. And he's going to focus a little bit more on the artists from the northeast of Brazil, where is the origin of the gallery. And José Patricio, that we're seeing, is one of these artists. This is an installation that he did at the Pinacoteca in São Paulo, the Octagon, which is a program of installations that they have there. And it's all dominoes. It's an installation of domino pieces in the floor. And we are going to have one of these installations in the show together with many other artists. And I honestly don't know exactly how the show is going to be. Moacir is taking care of that, but I'm looking forward to it. And the other shows that we're going to have in New York, the celebration is going to take place in the second half of the year. And we have invited Vic Muniz, the artist, to curate the show. He is a wonderful curator. He did a show at MoMA in his early days as an artist. And he always brings very interesting connections between the artists. And I think that the idea in New York is going to be to show a little bit more of our international program in New York for the first time. And so bring together all these international artists that we normally show in Brazil into New York. And I think that just to finish, something that I didn't talk too much about, but the bridge that we're doing in New York with the Brazilian artists, we also do in Brazil, right? So uh, putting a lot of effort into bringing international artists into Brazil through all the difficulties of the importation system and taxes and tariffs and whatever. But we're doing that, and we have been able to put up some super interesting projects in museums around the country, not only in São Paulo. The most recent one that we had was a reenactment of Daniel Buren uh, um, regatta in the Guanabara Bay in Rio by the Sugarloaf, with this optimist sails doing a regatta. It was really beautiful to see, and after the regatta, the the sails were then shown. It's a two-part project shown at the Museum of Modern Art in Rio. They are now there, and people have been enjoying a lot. We also just closed a show of a Swiss artist that we worked, Not Vital, in a Niemeyer design museum in Rio, the Niterói Museum, which feels like a UFO landing in the mountain in Rio. It's super beautiful, and he did this installation of snowballs inside the Rio summer that was fantastic, and so on. So we have been really working in the past many years in creating this bridge, and we'll continue to do so in the foreseeable future. So, so thank you.
Daniel, thank you so much. This has been really an illuminating conversation, and I really admire all that your gallery is doing. And with that, I guess I will turn it to Joshua to see if there's some questions for you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you both for that conversation. As we shift into audience Q&A, if you're in the audience and you have a question for Daniel, we encourage you to submit your question through the link in the chat. We have a few queued up here. Daniel, the first question is, what challenges do galleries face today that they might not have faced a few decades ago?
Let me let me think. I think that one of the biggest challenges that we face is that um, just like the cost of everything went up a lot. So the way that the galleries have been doing their work, kind of effectively in the last years through the art fairs and being present in, bringing the artists to different audiences. This is harder now because logistics are just like unbelievably um expensive, and the not only the logistics but the situation of the world, everything is getting more complicated to, I think that when we started doing this, it was a more kind of a plain globalized world that free movement and free and not very expensive, and it's been changing rapidly. So um, it feels like it's we are getting back to a more local kind of connection, right? So with the community artists talking to the community, and that is just a change. It might be a good change, a different way of doing things, but yeah, I think that the question of what is different now that from what it used to be, I think that this is what comes strongly uh, into my mind.
Thank you so much for that response. Our next question comes from Felipe in the audience, who writes, a compelling story, a great contribution to Sao Paulo's, Rio de Janeiro's, and New York's art community. With so many responsibilities as a leader, how do you feel about balancing the creative aspects of running a gallery, such as studio visits and visiting shows, and getting deeper into your own artist processes?
Yeah, it's the time is being consumed a lot by travelings and taking care of all these other galleries. It becomes harder to take care as in the past of visiting everybody. So um, having said that, I'm here in LA today. We're opening our participation freeze that's opening soon, and I'll run to the fair. But yesterday I was here in the city and I spent my afternoon visiting one artist that we work with and whose studio is in the city, and it was great, to spend the afternoon with her and see what she's doing and discuss the future. So it's always a pleasure to do that. I try to do it as much as I can. But on top of that, we organize the gallery in a way that we have a team of people that uh, have the responsibility to be very close to the artists and to be visiting and bringing the information to us, and making sure that we're keeping as close as possible to the artists. We also, as we discussed here, work a lot with curators. So um, we try to make sure that the creativity and the openness um, of ideas being presented in the gallery are guaranteed through that. So even if you know my creativity is not is busy with other things, we think that uh, we have this preoccupation that we will continue to show the artist in the best possible light, being creative, trying to find new ways to present them. Very often times working with architects and other artists on the shows, you know on the exhibition space, and hoping that this is a way that we can continue to do. um, and continue doing this good job for the artist, and having the work shown well, which is at the end of the day what we're here for, and creating the connections right between the artist and the public and the museums, and being able to sell the work. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that question, Felipe, and thank you for that answer, Danielle. Before I go to our last question, I have a quick question for you as well. Something that I'm always struck by when I'm at Nara Roesler is the magnificent introductory texts that usually accompany the exhibitions. And so I'm curious about your relationship as a gallerist with this component of the exhibition program that you have.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed the fact that we are very frequently introducing artists to a new audience, right? So we think it's very important to have some context and some way for the audience to read into that. We realized quickly in New York that also the way that the audience interacts with the show is very different from the way uh, that they interact in Brazil. I think that the gallery in Brazil, or the galleries in Brazil, they tend to be more isolated. So when someone comes to the gallery, it's like a destination. You go there and you spend some time in the gallery, and there's always someone from the team that is having a conversation with you, sit down for a coffee. It's kind of a longer visit. And being in New York and Chelsea, you're just part of a long visit in the neighborhood, which is great because you have all this influx of people coming with different interests, and a multiplication of the impact of the show. But it's a quick visit, right? So and we felt like oftentimes people don't like to be approached by anyone um, to start this conversation. They want to be on their own, and have their own conclusions, uh, and move on to the next show. And maybe at the end of the day, they will finish the day with, okay, what was left in my mind from this pilgrimage in Chelsea. So these are the galleries that I like. These are the artists that I liked, and that's why blah blah blah, and so on. So we with that in mind, we think, or we thought, that having the context in the wall, and being more in a way museum like, um, to give the tools for people to to get into what we're trying to do is important, and we have been keeping that, um, and this also has the influence and the hands of Luis Perez Oramas, who has been uh, advising and being the senior artistic director of the gallery, and who has a long experience in the museum world, and is an advocate of giving the information to the public in a well thought out way, not superficial, and let people work uh, uh, their minds from there. So I'm glad that that you notice, that you appreciate, yeah, so great to have some feedback.
Thank you so much for that answer, Daniel. Our last question comes from the audience, and this audience member is curious about, as someone who grew up around art and artists, how has being and working as a gallerist shifted your idea about artists, or what has it taught you about artists?
Um, in a way, the my idea about artists, I know the artist personally, right? So it's people like us uh, that have. I have this uh, quote from a friend that told me once, who's a collector, that uh, artists are people who have uh, you know uh, an antenna that are slightly off, so they capture the world, the frequency of the world in a slightly different way, and they are able to express that and bring the attention of the audience to things that might have not been perceived uh, for the for most of the people. And then he would go on to liken that to the idea that the good collectors, in a way, have the same kind of a bent antenna and are able to connect to the artist more directly and understand that. So yeah, I think that's a little bit of the way uh, that I see the artist. I see them uh, not as the not as mythical figures or anything. We have discussions. We try to help them with the whenever there is a problem to solve, uh, something to discuss, and ways to produce whatever strategy that might be needed for to get something done. But yeah, they are all special in a way that um, it's not easy to be an artist. You have to be very perseverant and with a strong head to continue doing what you do, despite all the pressures to change and all the pressures to adapt or and um, and you continue doing what you believe and the way that you want, and trying to get your vision out. And oftentimes the vision that you're capturing through your antenna is very different from the vision that the regular antenna is capturing, and it might take time for people to get into the same wavelength, but eventually they might, or they might never, and you have to live with that. And so this is a very special trait that artists have. Um, Other than that, people that we hang out with and that we share vacations sometimes and share, you know, uh, good moments, bad moments, and that's it.
Thank you so much for that. Will go ahead and wrap up our Q&A today. And so I'm going to pass it right back over to you, Daniel, for the reading.
Oh, okay. So I was given this tradition of Brooklyn Rail to finish this meeting with a reading, and so I was looking around and thinking about what to do, and I found a poem by a Brazilian poet, Manuel de Barros, who's from Pantanal, a kind of a remote area from Brazil. He spent his life writing about small, discarded things, how paying attention to them can transform the way you see the world. And I I got attracted to that because my mother, Nara, she repeats often a quote that she likes very much, which is often attributed to Jean Cocteau, which is not knowing it was impossible, she went ahead and did it. And so I think that this poem by Barros has a little bit of this spirit, the idea that important things happen when you follow your intuition rather than the rules that are, thrown upon you. So, and I thought of doing it maybe a slightly different way. I thought of reading it in Portuguese in the original version, and then Jess would read the English translation of the poem after that. I don't know if we have Portuguese speakers in the audience, but anyway, let me give it a try. So I'll do that. O apanhador de desperdícios. Uso a palavra para compor meus silêncios. Não gosto das palavras, fatigadas de informar. Dou mais respeito às que vivem de barriga no chão, tipo água, pedra, sapo. Entendo bem o sotaque das águas. Dou respeito às coisas desimportantes e aos seres desimportantes. Prezo insetos mais que aviões. Prezo a velocidade das tartarugas mais que a dos mísseis. Tenho em mim esse atraso de nascença. Eu fui aparelhado para gostar de passarinhos. Tenho abundância de ser feliz por isso. Meu quintal é maior do que o mundo. Sou um apanhador de desperdícios. Amo os restos, como as boas moscas. Queria que a minha voz tivesse um formato de canto, porque eu não sou da informática, sou da invencionática. Só uso a palavra para compor meus silêncios. So, that's it.
Very beautiful, Daniel. And now the English translation of the poem is called The Harvester of Waste, and it was translated by Carolina Brionetzi Melchior. And in English, it sounds like this. I use words to compose my silences. I don't like words tired of informing. I give more respect to those who live in the belly of the ground, like water, stones, and frogs. I understand the accent of the waters well. I give respect to the unimportant things and the unimportant beings. I value the insects over the airplanes. I value the speed of the turtles over that of the missiles. I have in me this delay by birth. I was set up to like birds. I have happiness in abundance because of this. My backyard is bigger than the world. I am a harvester of waste. I love the leftovers like the flies. I wish my voice took the shape of a chant, because I'm not into informatics, I'm into inventionatics. I only use words to compose my silences. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And thank you again, Daniel and Jessica, for this wonderful conversation. We'd also like to thank the Marion Bolton Kippy Stroud Foundation and Tiger Foundation for sponsoring our NSE program and making these weekday conversations possible, and for their support of our growing archive, which you can view on the Rails YouTube channel. The Rail has been free and independent for 25 years. A donation directly supports our writers, production staff, and operations. Support our work through the link in the chat. And if you're available, join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. for a conversation with Jeppe Ugelvig, Serena Chang, and Brittany L. Proctor on the event of The Endless Garment Atlantic Basin at Pioneer Works. And as is Rail tradition, we now invite you to say hello and goodbye as you leave today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Daniel. This was
Thank you so
wonderful.
much,
Thank
Daniel
you.
and Jessica.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you,
Daniel. Congrats on
Daniel.
50 years.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Obrigado.
Abraço.
And Jess.
Congratulations, Daniel.
Thank you all for
Congratulations.
coming.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
ciao.
Safe travels.
Amazing show, Luis, too. That's up right
Thanks,
now.
guys.
Yes.
Yeah, go see the show,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
If anyone is
Thank
in
you,
LA,
Jess.
come and
Thank
visit
you,
the
Jess.
fair.
Bye.
Tchau.
Best of
Obrigado.
luck in LA.
Abraços.
Ciao.
Good luck.